This is the tale of Fodlan in the year 1185. There once was a great war in Fodlan between the Kingdom of Fargus, the Leicester Alliance, and the Adrestian Empire. This conflict was started when the future rulers of each kingdom would enroll at Garrick Mark Monastery. Dimitri, the future king of both Fargus and eventually all of Fodlan, was known as a savage boar who once lost his way, savagely taking down any warrior who stood in his way of revenge towards the Empress Edelgard. Today I will tell the tale of King Dimitri, who would soon be known as the most gentle heart of Fodlan, and his efforts in a flawless victory, as rumors throughout time have told that not even a single one of his soldiers had lost their lives during this war.
Hello everyone, my name is JBR and I kinda love Fire Emblem 3 Houses if you couldn't tell. It's really fun to mess around and make funny builds with the huge cast of great characters. However, one thing that I always thought was quite strange about this game was the premise, being that the main character, who secretly has God inside of them, we'll skip that fact for now, they are tasked with bringing literal 15-year-olds to fight wars in evil societies of sociopathic mages that have been alive for thousands of years. All while the main character, who you can name after yourself by the way, or use as a cheeky way to remind your viewers to subscribe, is the teacher of these 15-year-old students. This is basically the plot of 3 Houses.
Hey, you're kinda cute. Can you be a teacher for me?
Yes, Mommy.
Okay, stranger, you're in charge of the future king, and a bunch of other 16-year-olds. Don't let them die to giant monsters and shit, broski?
Yes, Mommy.
Anyways, I've always thought that it should be the teacher's duty to make sure that their students stay safe. I've decided to come up with this challenge where I don't let a single one of my students take even a single 1 point of damage throughout the entire game. That's basically how I came up with the idea for this challenge run. So before I started the challenge, there was a bit of planning that needed to be done. Mainly, what route should we attempt? After a bit of thinking, I decided that Golden Deer would be the easiest since I think it's the only one that can be completed. The main reason is that Claude is a fantastic archer, and is the only route that doesn't have a final boss with multiple health bars. Unfortunately, I wasn't the only person to attempt a no damage run. Point Blank VT had already done a series doing the Golden Deer route, so that leaves me with 3 other routes that I thought would all be impossible, but fuck it, we ball. When picking between the 3, I went with the Blue Lions. This was a choice dependent on the final boss of each route. Edelgard and Rhea, as well as Rhea, are all kind of the same boss, but the Rheas have this stupid luck gimmick that gives them a random chance to just not die. I'm also a huge Blue Lions fan, but I haven't played the route in over a year, so that was a factor in my decision. So with my route chosen and the game booted up, it's time for one of the hardest challenges I've ever attempted in a video game. This is the story of how I beat Fire Emblem 3 Houses without taking damage. Our journey begins with the prologue. I try to give as many kills as I can in this chapter to Byleth. To do this, I start with baiting the early enemies with these forest tiles because they boost my chances of dodging. Early on in the game, it's very hard for us to one round and outrange the enemies, so I kinda have to get lucky with dodges on these earlier chapters. Having them attack me makes it much easier to eliminate the enemies with combat arts, since their HP bars will be about half. This map is a defeat boss map, so I get just outside of Kostas' range and then take him out by trading around Claude's bows and chipping him down, weakening him for Byleth to get the boss kill. The next chapter was the class mock battle. As a mock battle, if you were to lose any units in this map, they don't actually stay dead. So technically I could get away with treating this map like a normal one, but that's super lame. And I'm glad I challenged myself, because this map was probably the most fun of the whole run. We start out immediately in a bind. Lorenz, Ignatz, and Dorothea all come rushing at us. We don't have enough time nor the damage output to safely take them all out. That can be changed by baiting Lorenz to attack me in a forest tile for a 45% dodge on turn 1. If he hits, I can just reset the map and try again without any frustration since it's just turn 1. On turn 2, I have to go fully offensive, and this is when I utilize a net strength rally. Low-key the most broken thing this early on. With it, I'm able to do enough damage to one-shot Dorothea with Dimitri for his only kill of part 1. It might sound weird to not give any EXP to Dimitri in part 1, because debatably he's the best unit in 3 houses. But this will make more sense later on in the video. Anyways, one-shotting Dorothea is really important since she can attack from 1 to 2 tiles away, making it impossible to chip her without using a 3-range combat art. And I only have one person who can do that, but I need them to weaken Ignots after I take out Lorenz. The next obstacle in our way is Hilda and Claude, who both stand still and have a ranged weapon. It's also quite hard to approach them because of this. I figure that I can deal with them by using Curve Shot on Hilda, causing her and Claude to start rushing towards me, and get into my attack range. This tactic of poking and running to bait enemies, usually with Curve Shot, is something I do a lot in this challenge. Curve Shot is an easy to obtain combat art that any unit can get to allow them to hit an enemy from 3 tiles away, making even pesky 1-2 range units like Hedgemon or Hubert easy to deal with. The last challenge of this map is Edelgard. She just stands there, glaring into your soul, and I can't use any terrain to bait her with. This means I have to take her out with my weaker 2-range attacks. I get all my units just outside her attack range, use a rally for my net, and jump her like there's no tomorrow. I risk all my progress on an 89% hit chance with Sylvain, and unfortunately, for Edelgard, we hit it. Manuela quickly gets the Hedgemon treatment, and we're done with chapter 1. I spent a long time going in detail on this first map, but I think it shows almost all of the baseline strategies for the early stages of this chapter. The only things it's missing are showing off 2 of the best units in this run. So before we move on to chapter 2, I'm actually forced into a large mock battle with a giant horde of enemies that all eventually rush at me at once. It's really intimidating. With my newly recruited friends in Yuri and Happy, my squad takes action, and I try to thin their numbers before they all rush at me. My entire army except 1 unit will head into forest tiles. The first god of this run I just mentioned is not Yuri or Happy, but actually everyone's favorite gentle giant Dedue. This behemoth of a man boasts the highest base defense stat out of all of the students in the game, as well as the highest defense growth. That's without even using his personal skill, which, if I make him wait his turn, he will gain an extra 4 defense. By giving him a shield on the battle preps, I can make Dedue take 0 damage from any enemy on his first map. I could just have the big guy solo clear the whole map, but I really want to focus giving EXP to Byleth and the guy I would probably call the MVP of this run, Felix. Straight away, starting in chapter 2, Felix is already able to one-round some enemies with the bow. I can use 1 unit to completely kill another unit completely out of their range, which is broken this early on. Oh, speaking of chapter 2, at the start of this map we get the best feature in the game. This being, Lord bless the devs for this feature, Divine Pulse. Divine Pulse lets us go back in time to a previous point in the map a limited amount of times to correct our mistakes and correct bad luck, without having to replay the entire map. This, as well as the insane amount of archers we can get in 3 houses, are the 2 main reasons I attempted this challenge over any other Fire Emblem game. There's nothing really too special about chapter 2 other than talking about how annoying enemy archers are. The problem with these archers is they can easily outrange me. They have 5 move, they can hit from 3 tiles away, so effectively any archer I face has a massive range of 8. The only way to deal with them besides just getting lucky and dodging is to bait them with Dedue, and then jump them all at 1 range where they can't retaliate. Yet again, Dedue is the GOAT. Besides the archers, there isn't really too much problem with this map, other than carefully dealing with the multiple waves of enemies that just keep coming for a little while. The last thing I should explain before moving on is that sometimes it may appear that not every unit is at full health. And that looks sketchy as hell when the whole point of this challenge is to not take any damage. So you'd expect me to be at full HP at all times. Well, the reason this might not happen isn't because my units have taken damage, but because they may level up and increase their max HP, or in Dedue's case here, gain the plus 5 HP skill mid-battle. If I could hack the game and give everyone a 0% HP growth and remove the HP boosting skills that activate mid-freaking battle, I would, trust me. So the next map is chapter 3. Fuck this map, dude. Just look at this map. We have to try and take no damage with a million archers hidden in the fog. This is just a pure nightmare. Trying to be super careful while getting EXP in this map is really hard, because the green units in this map, like Catherine, just march forward stealing all the kills. I tried looking up enemy placements for this map online, which took forever, cause who else other than me is looking up normal mode map placements. But after I found them, I didn't feel much better, considering almost all the enemies I can't see are 8 range archers. Chapter 3 was easily my least favorite map of the entire run. I needed a ton of RNG and luck on my side if I wanted to quickly take out the Dark Mage to see what the heck I was doing. There's what feels like 10 different archers at the top of the map, which Dedue can pull, but he doesn't have enough defense to be able to attack back, since his personal skill only gives him a buff if he effectively does nothing on player phase. So it was really tricky to pull them close enough to be able to take them all out without being in range of the next one. After legit like 20 resets, the most of this entire run by far, I am finally able to get rid of all the archers, get a ton of EXP for future hard maps, and once again, take out a boss with no problem. If I were to do this challenge all over again, I would probably just let Catherine kill everything, and just give the boss kill to Byleth, because Catherine for some reason doesn't attack the boss. Before heading into chapter 4, I need to do a bit of training. I need to promote a ton of units, as well as recruit Constance. She's not really used for much other than her C rank rally, being Rally Res, which I can use on Happy to bait out mages similar to Dedue, but for her resistance stat. This map isn't too hard, but is kind of tricky due to the 25 turn time limit. And if you can't tell by now, this challenge early on takes a lot of turns to beat each chapter, due to having to spend so many turns baiting out 1 or 2 enemies per turn. I also could have easily just avoided the Death Knight since he doesn't attack you on normal mode, but I don't want little Timmy in my fucking comment section calling me a loser for not fighting him. So with a ton of gambits, rallies, and linked attacks, I'm able to kill him, with a 60% chance from Sylvain using a Knight Kneeler combat art. This is probably a good time to talk about gambits. In battle preps, I can give an extra ability to units depending on their authority skill. These gambits can be multi-targeting attacking abilities that deal massive damage to enemies. And most importantly for this run, all the enemies that are hit by the gambit are frozen in place and get stat debuffs. If there's a large line of enemies that I can't deal with right away, I can freeze them in place and divide my efforts across 2 turns. There's also utility-based gambits. We'll get into a ton of broken ones later when we unlock them, but for now, the one we use almost every chapter is Stride. This gambit is very famous because it's really broken. Stride can give every single one of my allies plus 5 movement for a single turn, but can only be used twice per map. With this skill, I can completely outrange any pesky enemies and just spend my turn wiping out entire squads of enemies. When I have units like Byleth and Felix who can one-round enemies, this gambit becomes the ace up my sleeve for every map. It becomes even more broken when I get mountain units later on that can move, attack, then run away with plus 5 movement, allowing me to poke just one guy, run away, and watch as an entire army moves into my attack range. After whooping the Death Knight's ass and beating this chapter, we get the Sword of the Creator, which is broken as hell. This is a personal weapon for Byleth, giving her an amazing 2-range weapon with a combat art that gains a ton of crit. By resetting RNG, I'm able to cheese some enemies and bosses by taking them out in one hit with this overpowered combat art. Next on our list is Chapter 5, which is surely a map most people were expecting me to struggle with. Luckily it's not that bad here because the archers are stuck behind walls, making it much easier to take them out than you might expect. I also decided to absolutely cheese this map by sniping the boss with Felix through the walls, but this map doesn't end when I take out Miklon. The highlight of this map is taking out the real boss, which kinda looks like my paralysis demons. This is the first demonic beast of the run that we have to take out. These monsters have multiple health bars, can attack from 1-2 range, and have massive defense and res stats, with shields that halve all damage. I have to use multiple units to take out these health bars without being hit once. Luckily for me, Maddening mode demonic beasts deal so much damage and are so dangerous that I'm kinda used to taking these guys out while trying to take as little damage as possible. I start out with using Stride on my entire party, then I get into position. The way to take these monsters out is actually quite simple. When you use a battalion, the monsters don't get a chance to attack back, and you instantly break one of its shields. Right after breaking a shield, the monster can't counterattack. So you can use these actions following a gambit use to continue breaking all the shields until they're all gone. When all of the shields are broken, the monsters will be stunned and won't attack on enemy phase. This means I can use my best units to attack twice to take out multiple health bars. Taking out all the shields also gives us materials that can repair legendary weapons, which is a nice bonus. Speaking of legendary, we get the super powerful Lance of Ruin, and one of the best units in the game normally, but even more so for this run. It is my wife Shamir. She starts out in the sniper class, which means she can hit from 5 tiles away, and if using combat arts on top of her 5 movement, she can hit from 10 tiles away, or 15 with stride activated. She's basically like a power crept Felix, and Felix has already been carrying my run so far. So good in fact that they can one round almost any enemy from 14 tiles away. It's insane how good these two are, and using them to snipe down armies is how I beat essentially every map from here on out. Chapter 6 is next and super easy if you get last 60 to B rank Faith Magic, to learn Warp really early. With Warp, you can teleport straight through this wall in one round the Death Knight with a strong unit, by using the Thunderbrand, a sword you get when you recruit Catherine. Sucks for me that my Lysithea didn't join soon enough to get Warp, so I have to play this map normally. It is tricky with the turn limit, and the Death Knight is still insanely strong. We already killed him in under 25 turns before, and now we have much stronger units and gambits. Chapter 7 is the Battle of the Eagle and Lion. This is a massive, large-scale battle between the Blue Lions, Golden Deer, and Black Eagles. I would go in detail about this map, but we actually play this map twice in the Blue Lion story. Once in part 1 and once in part 2. Since the attempt of part 2 is far more interesting and much harder, I'm going to skip on talking about it for here and go more in depth later. The last big event in part 1 worth going in depth over is the White Herron Cup. This contest decides who will be your dancer. At first I was thinking of making Dimitri my dancer, purely for the plus 20 Sword Avoid skill the dancer class gives. I thought I might need it for chapter 13 and beyond, but looking back on it, I'm happy I didn't go with that decision. I need a dancer to dance for Dimitri and others later on. I ended up going with Yuri since his days of using Wind Sweep on enemies are long behind us, and everyone else was still pretty useful on player phase. The only other option was Annette, but I needed her to rally people and use high level gambits. The rest of part 1 is quite a snooze fest. In chapter 8 we just have to kill 4 monsters, and in chapter 9 a single boss. Chapters 10 through 12 are pretty much the same song and dance over and over again. We use Stride, Warp, and Dance to get Byleth in range of 1 boss to beat the chapter. Sorry, 2 bosses in chapter 10. After this, Edelgard does this kind of quirky little thing where she starts an entire massive war, so we have to kill her twice by using Stride, Warp, and Dance to get our way to a clean 1 round. Then in chapter 12, Stride, double Warp, and Dance for a clean 1 round, bringing part 1 to its end. Part 1 started out pretty rough, but as we got more time to train our units and give them the perfect skills to avoid danger, we were able to completely protect our students. I would imagine that Byleth would continue to protect her students going into the war, but unfortunately she falls into a cliff, forgets that she can travel back in time to prevent this, but somehow lives. But first, she has to take a nap for 5 years. In that time, we can see that Dimitri clearly got injured without the protection of his uwu kawaii sensei Byleth. Why did I write that? Why did I put that in the script? But now that Byleth is back into his life, we're going to do whatever it takes to protect him. Protecting our students is easier said than done though, because we immediately hop into chapter 13. This map is known as one of the most bullshit maps in the entire Fire Emblem series when playing on maddening mode. For us it's not that bad, but the core mechanics of this map that make it a massive headache still stand. The main reason for my complaints is that we don't have battle preps. So we kind of just have to figure it out with the gambits and weapons we had equipped in chapter 12, which mind you, we had to carefully plan a double warp skip for that chapter. It also doesn't help that all of our units are spread out all over the map, which is a no bueno for this challenge, where we kind of like to group up and take out squads of enemies with all of our units. To start out, we only have Super Saiyan Green Byleth and Dimitri, who might have lost his eye, but my god can we see his stats go through a glow up. So here's where I reveal why I didn't train Dimitri pre-time skip. By not leveling up Dimitri, we ended up making this map and the rest of post-time skip much easier. On normal mode, all of your students get auto leveled to 20 if they haven't reached that level yet. This is why even after Byleth and Felix were way over leveled, I kept giving them EXP over the other units. That's because the EXP would be wasted if they were auto leveled to level 20 anyways. Dimitri gets 19 free levels, but that's not really a good reason to single him out and not use him considering how strong he is. The reason why we hold off on Dimitri is because he will gain 19 levels not in his starting noble class, but as the High Lord class. With the High Lord class's gross in effect, this makes Dimitri on average much stronger in every stat by quite a few points. These auto level strats are so good that they make Dimitri able to carry a speed run on normal mode, so I figured these stats would be pretty good for this run as well. And right away, we can definitely see Dimitri's new power. Some assassins start rushing towards Annette and Mercedes immediately, and luckily for me, Dimitri is super tanky and has a broken battalion, so I'm able to get out of that situation by the skin of my teeth. For someone who doesn't care about his friends, he sure does like to keep his allies safe. So after a couple turns, Felix shows up at the top, and I get him into position for my giant plan of this map. All I have to do is get every single one of my allies safe, then have Byleth take out the archers on the bottom by dismounting her so that she will take 0 damage, then setting her up in range of the boss. After all of that mess, I swiftly take out the boss surprisingly easy with Byleth, but again, this map sucks, and that was just a fake boss. The real one starts running away up top, but unfortunately for him, he's now in range of Felix and gets absolutely destroyed. With that god-awful chapter out of the way, we regain our access to the monastery. And since we just had a 5-year time skip, there's plenty of amazing weapons, items, stat boosters, and most importantly, a ton of amazing battalions that are going to carry us for the rest of the game. There were loads of great combat-based battalions in this game, used for damaging and stalling enemies in place for enemy phase, but there were a few utility battalions that I really need to highlight here that completely trivialize the rest of the game. The first is the Dance of the Goddess. This is a battalion that gives an extra turn to 4 units. This means I can effectively give a unit like Felix 4 turns, because I can have him attack a unit, get danced, then use the Dance of the Goddess battalion on him and the Dancer so I can give Felix 2 more attacks. This battalion is f***ing broken and really strong for warp strategies to beat chapters in a single turn later on. The next one is a battalion I didn't even know existed until I started this challenge. The Sacred Shield battalion is really good. It completely trivializes our biggest enemy being the Archer, Sniper, or Claude. The effects of this battalion makes 3 units immune to all damage from ranged physical attacks for both player phase and enemy phase. This ability is insane when combined with another battalion being Retribution, a gambit almost as famous as Stride. This grants up to 12 units the ability to counterattack regardless of foe's range for a whole 5 turns. If we can dodge, have a high enough defense or res to take no damage, we can essentially kill any unit on the map regardless of how far away they are. We can go for some slightly risky dodge strats on turn 1 to clear out a large section of a hard map. This is potentially the best battalion in the game, right behind Stride. Lastly, before starting chapter 14, I decided to do some quick level grinding for my strongest units, including the new Super Dimitri and Sedith. So let's move on to chapter 14. It's a route map in air quotes. The first thing you might notice about this map is how many enemies are right in the middle of it. Doing my usual bait maneuvers is only going to get me so far in this map. Also on top of it all, if any enemy unit touches these tiles in the back, we instantly lose. It isn't that big of a deal. since if any enemies get to that point, we've probably lost already by taking damage. What sucks about it though is we have to stay in the back and protect these tiles. The biggest problem with this map is that there are infinite Pegasus reinforcements, who are the second hardest enemies to deal with behind Bow Knights, due to being able to fly over any terrain and attack my units with really good hit rates. So how do I beat this map? Well, it's actually quite simple, by committing war crimes. Over on the right side, if we get our little green pal to this one tile the sniper is standing on, we'll be able to stop the reinforcements and a couple other nifty things. The problem is that the green will die before reaching that tile, and we can't move in too far because of the ballista's range, and all it takes is 1 damage for us to be soft locked. But with the Sacred Shield Battalion we just got, it's actually not that hard to get in range of the sniper in order to clear the path for the green unit. When that green bastard finally arrives, it triggers a giant fireball to brutally attack all of the guys in the middle, dealing massive damage and stunning them in place for a turn. The most important thing is it stops the reinforcements and turns us from a route map to a defeat boss map. After the victory condition changes, I quickly move Byleth to a nearby forest and make use of one of the most broken abilities by this point in the game that almost all of my units have by now, being Alert Stance. It works just like Dedue's skill, where if I press the wait turn button, I gain plus 15 avoid, and every single unit in the game can learn this skill by getting a B rank in flying. If they get an A plus rank in flying, they get a plus 30 instead of 15, which is crazy. I don't think I even used Alert Stance Plus in this playthrough for some reason, because I'm stupid and forgot it existed. Anyway, with those avoid buffs on Byleth, we can easily take out the boss and the surrounding enemies. So if we thought 13 and 14 were hard, the next 2 maps of this challenge were some of the hardest to date, or I guess more like the most time consuming. Chapter 15 was a doozy and a half, because it's one of the few defeat boss maps at this point in the game that we can't warp skip in 1 turn. This is because instead of just 1 boss that we have to take out, we now have multiple bosses, including even more additional bosses that show up after a couple of turns. The main bosses of this map include a flying wyvern lord and 9 move paladins. The first task was to take out the central tower ballista and the paladins that spawn behind us. After I deal with the first group of enemies and the first boss being probably the weakest one in the game, I slowly creep all of my units to Ladislava? Ladisava? To bait Lazagna, because she likes to attack with a gambit, which is much harder to dodge than regular attacks. Lazagna decides her best hit chance is to go for a 22% attack with her silver axe. Byleth then proceeds to crit and obliterate her. It seems like I was a little too worried about this boss. Well, after she dies, Ferdinand shows up, and now I have to kill him and Lorenz, who are both 2 of my favorite characters in 3 Houses. Oh well, we've already committed war crimes by this point, so my army isn't really fazed by this. Well, that out of the way, I move on to the highly anticipated Gronder field battle. But before we do that, allow me to quickly be a YouTuber for a second and ask you to crit that subscribe button and share out the video if you're enjoying. This whole challenge took me about 4 to 5 months to figure out, and editing this video has taken another 3, so it would really mean a lot if you subscribe, because it would let me know if you want more Fire Emblem challenge runs in the future. But anyways, let's get on to the Gronder field battle. So there is a ton of stuff going on in this chapter. Just like the mock battle, we have to fight both the golden deer and the black eagles. Luckily, we can end the map by just taking out Claude and Edelgard, but reaching Edelgard is not easy since there's 1.5 million enemies, including a ballista, in our way, and only Byleth can really hope to 1v1 Edelgard. The first 2 turns are extremely important because all of my guys are sort of stuck in the back. It's kind of like the early turns of chess, as I try to get my pieces out on the board to become threats. By using stride and some dances, I'm able to put my units in a position on enemy phase to swiftly take out the starting area by turn 2. By turn 4, I'm already able to take out Hubert and have complete control of the middle of the map, and even clear a safety net for myself on the left side. Claude doesn't like how well we're doing, so he decides to rush at us with all he's got, launching an all-out attack, as well as some sneaky reinforcements from the right side, which include Leone, who is a disgusting bow knight, as well as Hilda, who comes on my back. Sorry, comes from the back. Hilda barely takes any damage from anyone not named Felix, so I have to bring my allies a bit closer to Claude's impending army than I'd like to. How fitting is it that our biggest weakness, an entire army rushing at us, is exploited by the self-proclaimed master tactician Claude. After Leonie and Claude get in my range, I use a Sacred Shield Battalion to go on the offensive, to make it so none of the archers behind them can damage me. So they end up just moving towards the middle of the map, I guess. After taking out Claude and Leonie, I have to take out Petra, who I didn't realize until now, but she's probably the scariest enemy on the map. After taking Petra and a demonic beast down, I bring Byleth in linked attack range of Edelgard in order to give Sylvain a boss kill. I used Annette's rally for this, but I really didn't need it since I managed to crit Edelgard to oblivion. And that's where Three Houses ends. We took out Claude and Edelgard, and oh wait, there's still 5 more chapters of this fucking game. Well, the video's getting pretty long by this point, but luckily we can kind of speed run some of these last chapters. Chapter 18, warp skip and then one round the boss. Chapter 19, warp skip and then crit the boss. Chapter 20, warp skip and have Sylvain one round the boss after Byleth chips. Chapter 21, I bet you'll never guess, but we warp skip and then one shot Hubert for the final time that I have to kill this son of a bitch. And just like that, we've suddenly arrived at chapter 22, the last chapter of the game. I'll be totally honest, I didn't think we had any chance to make it this far. This map was the sole reason I didn't think any route besides Golden Deer would be possible to beat. So what's stopping me from just warp skipping this map like the previous ones? It's not like we have to beat multiple bosses in this map. It's just us versus Adel. Oh my god, what the fuck is that? Edelgard shows her ultimate resolve by transforming herself into a demonic beast with a massive 4 health bars, making it impossible to one-turn player phase her on this map. That's not even the scariest part of Edelgard actually. What makes this map so difficult is Edelgard's insane attack range that can almost hit us from the starting room. Keep in mind that this is the only attack in the game that Retribution cannot retaliate off of. There are countless ballistas and meteor mages that can hit from 3 to 16 tiles away depending on if they can move or not. This map is almost impossible to navigate a safe path to the boss in order to even attempt taking her down, which looks impossible from how high her stats are. My first attempt goes about how well as you would expect it to go. The only area I can safely take out on this map is the little tiny left corner. And it's not even that easy to take out this section since there's a meteor mage. My best attempt at taking this corner out is to bait the enemies closer using Byleth as a dodge tank. I managed to clear out the corner, but then I become completely lost as to where and how to approach. I tried bringing my army towards the middle of the map to set out an all-out assault using Stride, but the enemy counters me by charging in. Normally this wouldn't be the worst thing, but some of the enemies are just out of reach and have some massive attack ranges to counter. I take out what enemies I could and have Byleth block the path, forcing the enemies to go after her. After dodging 229%, we have a chance of making some sort of play. As the demonic beasts and other enemies close in on me, I ultimately decide that I need to reset. Take 2, I plan to try and get rid of Edelgard's massive attack range and the meteor mages. How do I do that, you ask? Well, if you enter the throne room, Edelgard stops going for her massive ranged attack. This was probably programmed so you can't just beat Edelgard up, as on her turn she attacks someone with a 3% chance across the map. Anyway, I determined that the best way to get through this map is to release the caged beast and awaken the DWRN strats, aka the Dimitri Warp Retribution Nuke. Dimitri, as you know, is one of the strongest units in my army. In part 2, his personal ability evolved and now gives him a plus 20 avoid chance if he's at full health. This is added with alert stance, which gives him another 15, making Dimitri the best dodge tank in the game. If I were good at the game, I would have gotten him alert stance plus, which gives him a 30% boost, making it a total of 50%. With this in mind, I warp Dimitri to the throne room, where he gets absolutely booty blasted. So after a few more resets and a bit more planning, let's see how I finally beat this challenge. So, while I take out the bottom left corner like usual, I send Dimitri and his insane dodge skills to start his conquest of the middle section of the map. He's able to pull enemies closer and even kill a couple of long-range enemies thanks to retribution. After taking out the enemies in the middle, I move Dimitri a bit closer to take out the moral savants and 2 scary meteor mages, which causes a large majority of the throne room's enemies to start coming towards me. While I wait for them to approach, I have Byleth pull the demonic beast closer so that Felix can start to shoot him down once per turn. Eventually, the throne room's enemies enter my army's range, and I safely pick them off one by one. This next section was quite time consuming, but I need to bring my allies around their right side so I can safely enter the throne room due to Edelgard's attack range. While I slowly climb my way there, I have Byleth on the other side take out a ballista mage and avoid the demonic beast who ran off. I have her run away, and while I wait for Byleth to return, I stall the last ballista out of shots so I can safely take out the demonic beasts. Now, with 2 hours of footage done, I finally cleared out all the enemies, and now it's time to enter the throne room. I warp Dimitri in, removing Edelgard's massive attack range, and have him dodge tank his way into killing all the throne room enemies on the right side. I swiftly get all my allies just outside of Edelgard's now shorter yet still massive attack range and start seeing how much damage I can do and my hit rates. By wasting Byleth's turns to activate alert stance, I can dance for her to get her dodge rates much higher, and that allows me to do massive damage to Edelgard's first health bar. I get her low enough so that Sylvain with swift strikes can take out her first health bar. While I was checking hit rates, I started to wonder why Dimitri's dodge rates weren't much higher than Byleth's or Sylvain's. Realize now that since Dimitri leveled up and gained HP, he's now technically no longer at full HP. I have Lysithea heal him up, use my last retribution gambit, and have Dimitri shred through Edelgard's second health bar. After that, I realized that this might be possible. I quickly healed up Dimitri, rally boosted his stats, and danced him back in range. After 2 turns of whittling down Edelgard's third health bar, I went on the offensive with a stride gambit so that I can have Byleth take out the third health bar. I missed. I fucking missed. Okay, no biggie. I can just use Seth to attack as long as I dodge Edelgard. And I miss. That would have been super cool, but I guess I can just let Dimitri weaken her again. The next turn, I use my last stride and take out this third health bar. Now with this last health bar, I switch Dimitri to his strongest weapon and heal him one last time. Like I said at the start, I wish I could turn off health bar level ups. 1 so that Dimitri could stay at full HP, and 2 so it doesn't look like I've taken damage. I have Yuri dance for Dimitri so that he can activate alert stance in order to allow him to attack on player phase. I have this chance to finally take her out and I miss. This is nerve wracking because I'm out of divine pulse uses. This miss means that Edelgard now has another chance to hit me. Luckily, she misses. Fine, just one more turn, we make out, move, and attack. With no more divine pulse uses, I risk everything. All my progress, all my allies' hopes on this 33% dodge. This was the most insane challenge run of Fire Emblem. Hell, the most insane challenge run of any game that I've ever attempted. I was able to pull out all the tricks in the Fire Emblem 3 Houses handbook in order to beat 3 houses Azure Moon without taking damage. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean the world to me if you subscribe and shared the video with some people that you think would enjoy it. I plan on doing some more Fire Emblem challenge runs in the near future, including my already completed attempt to beat Radiant Dawn with only force deployed units, where I had to do the last section of the game, the tower, with only Ike and Micaiah. I would also like to challenge some of you at home to attempt to beat Fire Emblem 3 Houses Golden Deer without taking damage. I'd love to hear about your runs in our Discord linked in description. If you have any challenge run ideas, make sure to comment them down below and let me know what you thought of this challenge. Until next time everyone, I've been JBR from JBR Channel. You have yourself a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching. Bye bye!